Sure. Here is asterisk part 1 of the story based on your outline, written in simple, engaging English and in the third-person style, ensuring it's safe for YouTube and complies with your specifications. Asterisk part 1. The Princess's Search for a Worthy Partner Asper. The grand space station of Zorathon, orbiting the shining blue planet of Kelia, stood as the jewel of the galaxy, home to the vast galactic empire. From this magnificent fortress, Princess Zoralia ruled, a figure revered and feared across all the known worlds. Her lineage was unmatched, her beauty untouchable, and her intellect sharp as the finest blade. Yet, in her heart, there was one thing she longed for more than power: a true connection. Despite her many qualities, Princess Zoralia was alone. From the farthest reaches of the universe, suitors flocked to Zorathon, each one hoping to win her favor. Emperors, generals, and high-born princes, all who had the resources and influence to court her, came with grand gestures, yet they all failed, one by one. Zoralia rejected them without a second thought. To her, they seemed like actors on a grand stage, pretending to be something they were not. They were not interested in her. They were interested in the power she wielded. Zoralia sat on her throne in the grand hall, observing the latest batch of suitors who had been presented to her. Each one tried harder than the last, speaking of their vast empires, their military prowess, their noble lineages, but none of them caught her attention. Their words were hollow, their glances too eager, their gestures too grand. It was always the same: flattery, false admiration, and promises of protection. But Zoralia had seen it all before, and she found it hollow. Her blue eyes scanned the crowd of would-be suitors, their faces a mix of anxiety and hope. They all shared one thing in common: fear. They feared her power, her intellect, and the legacy that she carried. She could see it in their eyes. They were not approaching her as an equal, but as someone to be feared, someone to be won over. Zoralia had always carried the weight of her royal heritage, but it had become a burden, especially when it came to finding companionship. It was hard to find someone who saw her for who she truly was. Her gaze drifted across the ballroom, over the lavishly dressed lords and ladies, to the distant stars twinkling through the large windows. A heavy sigh escaped her lips. She longed for something real, something genuine, but it seemed so far out of reach. Her mind wandered back to the countless rejections she had made over the years. The princes from Vardan, the general from Sidra, and the High Lord from Cylon had all come with their gifts, their promises, and their grand words, but she had turned them all away. Zoralia stood up from her throne, her royal robes flowing around her like liquid starlight. She walked slowly through the hall, her footsteps quiet, but purposeful. The guests parted to make way for her, their heads lowering in reverence as she passed. She had the power to command armies, to control the fate of entire worlds, but she had never felt more alone. Her attendants followed her closely, their expressions tense as they kept a respectful distance. They knew better than to question her, for they understood the pressure she was under. Her father, Emperor Xandros, had given her the responsibility of choosing a worthy suitor, and yet every time she tried, she found herself repulsed by the very idea. The expectations of the Empire weighed heavily on her shoulders, but no one seemed to understand the true nature of her heart. She walked to the balcony, looking down at the planet below, its oceans shimmering in the light of distant stars. It was a beautiful sight, yet it felt empty, like the suitors who came and went. The stars, too, seemed distant and unreachable. "Your Highness," one of her attendants spoke softly, breaking her moment of solitude. "The delegation from the Vardan system is ready to present their candidate." Zoralia turned to face the attendant, her expression unreadable. She had heard this name before. The Vardan delegation had been pressing for weeks to have their prince presented as her suitor. But like the others, Zoralia knew what they wanted: power, control, and influence over the Empire. They cared not for her as a person, but for the throne she would one day inherit. "Send them in," she said with a quiet resolve, though her heart sank at the thought. A moment later, the Vardan delegation entered the hall, led by their prince, Lorien. He was tall and handsome, with dark flowing hair and a sharp, regal demeanor. His eyes locked with Zoralia's as he approached her, a confident smile on his lips. But Zoralia could see the same thing in his eyes that she had seen in so many others. A hunger for power, not love. "Your Highness," Prince Lorien began, his voice smooth and respectful. "It is an honor to finally meet you. The Vardoon Empire has long admired your leadership and strength. We believe that together we can bring peace and prosperity to the galaxy." Zoralia nodded politely, but said nothing. She had heard these exact words countless times before, and they meant nothing to her now. She studied him closely, his flawless appearance, his perfect manners. But behind the mask, there was nothing real. "I am honored by your words, Prince Lorien," she replied coolly. "But I must confess, I do not share your enthusiasm for our union." Lorien's smile faltered for only a moment, but it quickly returned, more forced than before. "I understand, Your Highness, but I assure you, my heart is true, and my intentions are pure. Together, we could rule the stars. Your reign would be unchallenged." Zoralia's lips tightened, and she stepped away from him. "Do not mistake my hesitation for weakness, Prince Lorien. I have no desire to be married to someone simply because of the title they hold or the power they bring. I seek something deeper, something more real." Lorien's eyes narrowed, and the temperature in the room seemed to drop. His voice became more insistent. "Your Highness, the Vardoon Empire is prepared to offer you more than just a title. We can offer you the galaxy." Zoralia's eyes flashed, and she turned to face him fully. "I have no need for the galaxy. I want a partner who sees me for who I am, not just what I represent." She could feel the tension in the air, the weight of the unspoken words. The room fell silent as she locked eyes with the prince, and for a moment it seemed as though time itself stood still. But then, Zoralia broke the silence. "I must ask you to leave, Prince Lorien. You are not the one I seek." The prince's face reddened with anger, but he bowed stiffly, masking his humiliation. "As you wish, Your Highness," he said, turning sharply and marching out of the room. Zoralia watched him go, her chest tightening as she struggled to hold back the frustration that was building inside her. Another suitor, another disappointment. She had rejected him, as she had rejected them all. But as the prince and his entourage departed, Zoralia couldn't shake the feeling that there was something missing, something that all the princes and lords had failed to offer. It wasn't power, nor wealth, nor status. It was something deeper, something human, something real.
And she wondered if it would ever come. I hope this captures the spirit of the story you're aiming for.
Let me know if you want any adjustments or further parts.